I just got back from directing my first feature film. We shot for 20 days and we started on the 26th of December and basically wrapped end of last week. And, it hasn't really completely hit that we finished because I feel like when you're in the middle of it, you just feel like you're go, go, go. And then all of a sudden it just stops. So it feels, it's definitely a weird adjustment getting back to normal life. But everything went really well. I want to talk today about some of the things that I learned, but also some of the things that surprised me and maybe some of the things that I would do differently next time. And yeah, let's get into it. So first of all, I want to talk about this being my first feature film that I directed. I've produced a film before about 2 years ago, and obviously I've been doing film sales, which I talk about a lot on this channel and on my Instagram and TikTok. That's kind of, my bread and butter, I guess. Is how you could say it, but I this would be my first one that I directed, which was awesome. It was really fun. I think beforehand I didn't really know like how it was gonna go, how it was gonna be as my first time, how were actors that are far more experienced than I am, how are they gonna react to a first-time director, just all the things that I think any first-time director thinks about and maybe worries about a little bit. But overall, I mean, we had such a really good team. We had an amazing crew. All the actors that we brought on board were just really good, talented, nice people. So it went really, really well, actually. And yeah, of course, like there's things that surprise you or things that went wrong, which I think is any indie film. But overall, I felt like, oh, this was really fun. I want to do it again. Like I hope to, once we go through post and submit this to festivals and sell this, I'd like to right away get into the next film. So that's how much I enjoyed it. But some of the things that I want to deal with are and kind of share with you guys that hopefully helps someone is just the reality of making an indie film. And I kind of want to start from the beginning. First, this idea that we started on this film really started about a year and a half ago is when kind of the idea started. And I think something that's important and that not a lot of filmmakers do is they write or create a project for what they have. And what I mean by that is not just how much money you have to put towards it, but also what locations you have, crew, all that type of stuff. So we shot mainly in Tijuana, in Mexico, which is where my wife is from, who is also the lead of the movie, Andrea Londo. And we thought, oh, it'd be cool to shoot something in Tijuana, especially because it has so much texture and it has its own character. It's such an interesting city, and we know a lot of people there. Like through her and through her brother, we know so many people there. So we knew we could get a crew together. So there are a lot of things, even with locations, that we could get for free, that really made us want to create a story there. And so then after that, we started thinking, okay, what story can we tell there? And then, you go to what which for me is tennis. Tennis has been my reality for like 30 years, 20 years. It's how I came to the US on tennis scholarship, played college tennis. It was my first passion, thing that I was obsessed with. So we thought, okay, I want to make something in tennis. I want to make a tennis story in Tijuana. And then it kind of happened by chance that a story came out of that. But we basically came up with this story about this Mexican-American tennis player that was this prodigy at 17, 18 years old. And then she gets to the final of the US Open, but then pretty soon thereafter basically gets on drugs, has this fall from grace type of moment, and then her boyfriend overdoses. And then she gets basically sent to rehab for 6 months. And that's really when our story picks up the most, because all of this, what I just said, is just stuff that happens really in the first 10 minutes. Like we find, like this all happens very quickly. Then we find her coming out of rehab where her estranged half-brother picks her up. And that's really the part where a lot of the story takes place, is when they have to go back to their mom's place, who passed away, in Tijuana. And basically that's where the brother is living right now. So they go back there, and of course she wants to make a comeback. She wants to get this wild card and for this big tournament and try to make a comeback attempt to what she was. But the reality is, with addiction and being out that long and all these other things, it makes it very difficult. And I think for us, we wanted to make a tennis film, but we also wanted to make an accurate addiction story and family. It's a family drama as well, but it's an addiction story and a tennis story. And I think it was important for us that it's not the typical happy ending, which I think we succeeded in doing. So that's kind of how it all came about, without giving more of it away, obviously. But that's kind of where it starts, and then you follow them and the characters that that appear in the film. But a lot of it was, and this is my advice for everyone, is figuring out what you have and writing around that, or creating a story around that. And that's what we did. We based it on locations that we had, based it on what I knew, which was tennis, and what I know a lot about. So everything was started from there. And after that, once we started that and we got the script and we got going, and then I started raising money, which I'll make a separate video about, since I know it's something that people are always interested in, and one of the most challenging parts of filmmaking is the money. So we raised money, did that, and then basically we were greenlit about 6 weeks before we started filming, right? So it took us a while to get the money together. And then, we had the cast, which was its own journey, and attaching actors. And I'm really happy with the actors that we got. Like, we got some really, big name talent as well, but also just amazing actors. So it really worked out. They all really loved the story. And again, people ask, how do you attach name actors, especially as a first time director and stuff? It still starts with the script. I do think, yes, you have some obstacle to overcome when it's your first time, and which I expected. I feel like going in, I just knew that there would be people that wouldn't want to take a risk maybe on a first time director. But there would be people that would want to, and then that would also be based on the script. So again, number one, script has to be super strong. Our script was very good, and that's what gets people on board initially. And then once you get the first people on board, then it kind of snowballs and becomes a little easier, which is how we did it. And I think that's basically kind of how we did it from basically start to the first day of production. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I would say to people, is write around the locations and the things that you have, not just the story that you want to tell. I also have a story that I'd like to tell separately from this one, but I do not have the budget for that. It's a bigger budget thing right now. So I wrote this one around what we know and what we could do well. And most importantly, being a sales agent, we wrote about what I think I can also sell and market, which is tennis. And tennis is its own niche audience, but it's a huge audience. And it's very easy to think about. We have a very detailed marketing campaign of how we want to do that. So it's very easy to market in the sense that you have specific people to target. And that's really important, I think, with any small indie, and especially if you don't have a huge budget. It's you need to be able to target a niche audience, and it can be a big niche. Tennis is a big niche. I don't know what the numbers are, but I think it was a huge number. I looked it up once. So we did do that. I didn't just want to make a drama that was just a general drama. I don't think those sell very well, especially if you have no name talent. I mean, we do have name talent, but even then, dramas are really difficult. I've learned that from being a sales agent as well. It's just something distributors are very weary about, and they don't sell for a lot. So we wanted to make sure, because I want to have a career, I don't want to just make one passion project. So, I mean, in this case, it did end up being also my passion, which is tennis, but I wanted to do something that worked business-wise as well. And that's what we've created here. So I think keeping all those things in mind, I think shows that it's not just about, some people give this advice of just write what you want to see type of thing. It's yeah, that's cool and everything, but you also have to be able to make it. So sometimes it's actually more creative to write around your constraints, which is what we did. And I think it really helped. I mean, it really helped the film, and it made the film way more creative. And I think there's some really scenes that I'm super excited about, and I'm super excited about the film. But that's kind of a long rambling way to say that, write around what you can do, first. Or you don't want to be a filmmaker that doesn't make a film 5, 6, 7 years because you keep trying to get this big budget thing made. Save that one for when you first do well, and then you can get money easier the next time. The other thing I would call this, I guess, point number 2 is, I think one of the things that surprised me most about directing is it's not just, what shot you're making and with the actors and everything that's going on. Yeah, that's a big part, but it's about managing people in a lot of ways. We had a fairly big crew. Well, for an indie, fairly big crew. I think we end up around 20 people crew-wise. So you're managing everyone, and every decision is yours. In that way, I think directing is similar to tennis. Is you can't take plays off. Tennis is that way too. It's not a team sport, so you can't sub out. And that's how directing is. You're on the whole time, because every decision goes through you. You need to say yes to these clothes. You need to, this location, does that work? Oh, we lost this. What's the B location? So it's always going through you. So you're on 24/7. So I think I don't think that surprised me. I knew that going in, which is probably why I like it, because it's like tennis in that way. But it is a lot about managing people and basically being able to work together as a team. And that I do think is its own skill set. and something to keep in mind, because there might be directors that are super talented that just don't know how to deal with people, and that's going to be really tough. I'm sure there's always exceptions, like some exceptional genius talent, but I think that's a bad way of going about it, and honestly not a way to have a long career. So knowing how to deal with people, managing people, working as a team, super important. Then the other thing I think that I would do different, I guess point 3, that I would change a tiny bit, is we shot 20 days. It was great. Like it was a fun shoot. It was very intense, and you're always trying to make schedule. You know what I mean? I think that's everyone. I think the one thing that I would do different is because we did 6 days on, 1 day off, and I think for everyone that sometimes got exhausting. So I think next time what I would do, especially if I can do it for the same budget, is 5 days on and 2 days off. I think it just creates more rest as well, but also for you as the director producer, it just gives you more days to, like 2 rest days, not one to relax, but also to adjust and to plan better, and just things that inevitably go wrong. It gives you enough time to kind of figure out solutions. So I think I would definitely do that differently. I would do 5 days on, 2 days off next time. And then, point 4, I think what was harder than expected is also that you have to let go of what you think or how you think this should be. Like when you read your script and you're reading your story, you inevitably see the scenes play out a certain way. But sometimes you bring on actors and maybe they're doing something different, or it's not exactly what you pictured. And it's really important to know when to adjust, I think, but also when to be like, oh, maybe this is better than how I had pictured it in my head. This actually elevates it. And I think we had a lot of that happen too, is where I felt like the way I saw it was maybe not exactly how it actually played out. But then when I saw it in front of me, I was like, oh, that's actually better. That works better. And we had that with really talented actors doing that, even with some line changes and everything. So I think it's really important to, as much as you can, to let go of some control, which is really difficult because if you're directing or producing a lot of those type of people, personalities, myself included here, is you like to be in control. Right? You like to know exactly how things are going to go, and you have your way, and that's a big part of it. So it's a balance, because you definitely want to follow your story, and you want to be kind of the protector of your story and know where you're going, but you want to leave flexibility that you can adapt, and maybe something turns into something better than you expected. That's always the hope. So I think that was definitely something to remind myself fairly consistently, is just to let go a little bit and to let things go where they're going, even if that is slightly different. Or when we lost the location and we had to find basically backup location same day, that's also, you got to let go and adjust. It's easy to be frustrated or disappointed, but then you got to figure out and I feel like that's what we did, is how do I make this work for the film, and I think that's what we did most of the time. But it's still not easy to do, because again, you get attached to certain things or how you thought that scene was going to look, but you have to be able to adapt quickly and just change and be like, okay, how does this work for my film? How can this potentially make my film even better? And we had multiple things like that pop up where initially it was like, oh damn, that sucks. But then a lot of times it turned into oh cool, now because of that we did get this and we hadn't planned on that, and this is cool, this is better. So I think again that's the same thing that I've been saying, is letting go of this complete control that you think you're gonna have, because you're not gonna have as much control as you think. And then last, I just wanted to say how I feel right now about everything. I feel really hopeful and really good. I'm really proud of what we did. I think for all of us it was a really mountain to climb, but in the best way possible. And it was stressful sometimes, but it was a good stress. I've done and still do jobs that I don't like doing sometimes. This is not one of them. This is something that I love, and it's awesome. So the stress is a good stress. I kind of feel like it's a stress that's similar to when I used to play tennis and you would play an important tournament. You would be kind of stressed but excited and anxious, and you would have all these feelings because you care, but it was a good stress. You want that stress. So I think for me, when people are like, oh, it's so hard making a film and blah, 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 it's yeah, it is hard making a film, but do I feel like it's much harder than anything else I've done? It's more intense, I'd say, than anything else I've done, because you're in a short window, and it's a lot in a short window. I think that's a better word for it. I wouldn't say it's more stressful, you know, or in that way harder, because there's definitely way more stressful things than making a film. I mean, I feel like you're just living the life, you're living the dream when you're making a film. So that's how I feel about it. So I would 100% do it again. I jokingly said I'd love to be shooting another film, a new film already by the end of this year. So I think maybe it's not joking, you know, maybe I mean that. I actually do want that. But look, right now I'm focused on the film sales company that I'm doing. I'm focused on that, focused on post-production. So right now, and what I'll talk about in the next couple of videos is kind of the plan on sales, on marketing, and all the stuff that I feel like I think anyone can benefit from. So I'll be talking about that and what I'm learning along the way, but also what's working, what's not working. So yeah, I hope this helps, and just, you know, subscribe, stay tuned. I'll definitely be sharing more and more these next couple of weeks. Appreciate it.